this is unfortunate. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Deviant Core podcast, and we're going to be doing things a little bit different here. I don't have the full show set up. I just kind of want to just talk about what went on in my home state, in particularly Kenosha, Wisconsin, and kind of the outrage and the civil unrest in not only that area, but in my city, Madison, that it's causing right now. And I want to talk a little bit about the situation because I feel like there could have been a lot of things in that scenario that, if just a little bit of common sense would have applied, we would not have a man fighting for his life in a hospital right now. We would not have children who are now traumatized after watching their father being attempted to murdered. All of this could have easily been avoided. And for those of you guys who don't know what I'm talking about the scenario that played out with Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Apparently there was a couple fights that happened, and he broke it up, and cops were somehow called in to intervene in the situation. For some reason, guns were drawn, and you could see in the video Jacob going to his car, which, by the way, that's a no-no. All right. So it's one of those things where you look at it, a lot of things right now regarding that situation could have been played out better. And first of all, let's talk about law enforcement for a second. Let's talk about police officers for a second. Let's talk about you departments out there. My question to you guys is, where is the self-awareness? Where is the self-awareness? Who are the leaders in these departments? Do you guys not understand the kind of public perception you guys have as law enforcement? Do you guys not understand the way you're viewed? We just came out. We're not even fully out of it. We're still in it, but now we're jumped right back in. But we're on our way out of nationwide civil unrest because of what happened in the incident that happened and played out with George Floyd. And we saw how out of control it was. We saw how many people, how many businesses, how many cities and neighborhoods and communities were destroyed by this. How many people were hurt. Common sense would say, okay, maybe in this tense economic period right now, in this tense pandemic period that we're in right now, let's show a little bit of restraint. Let's just show a little bit of restraint and ease into certain situations with a little bit more common sense. You have two officers, guns drawn, on a man with his back turned to you, civilians around you, children in the car you were firing those shots at. Complete disregard for human life that was displayed on camera. And we're surprised riots and unrest break out. We're surprised. Just watching the video, how disgusting that was. All unwarranted. You have tools at your disposal. You have other tools at your disposal to subdue. You got two guys. You're telling me you can't tackle the guy? You're telling me you can't tackle the guy who has his back turned to you? You tell me you can't do that? You tell me you can't tase him? When your partners get on him, restrain him? You telling me you can't do that? Look, to pull your firearm out, we're in a situation where there are children, there are parents, there are other people around that situation, other innocent people that could have been hurt. This is a problem. And this is one of those things where we have to now start taking a deeper dive into law enforcement. And I don't mean disbanding the police, because that's a clown way of thinking. That's a clown, dumb way of thinking. We need officers, obviously, but we need officers that are properly trained and can show restraint, especially when it comes to African American communities. Because let's just be real. This happens a lot. There's been hundreds of Jacob Blake's incidents playing out, even before we were forced to pay attention to it because of this pandemic. There's been tons of stories coming out with stuff like that, right? So now we're in a situation where all eyes are on you. We can't show restraint for human life. That goes to your training. That has to go with the training. We have to take a closer look into how these guys are being trained. And we also have to take a closer look into the kinds of people who are being hired on to take on these roles. We have to start looking at that and taking a deeper dive into this, man, because the level of restraint that was not given to this situation, the level of disregard for human life, it's painful to watch. It really is. And it's one of those things where you look at and you're just, if we don't have some serious changes soon, seriously, to the way not only law enforcement are being hired, but also to the way they're being trained and how they deal with situations, we are going to have a serious situation on our hands. Because I'm going to tell you right now, we are sick and tired of this. We are absolutely sick and tired of seeing this. And those of you guys who are leaders in this department, it is time to step up. It is time to step up. It is time to retrain. It is time to rethink what we view as being a police officer. We have to revisit all of this, because this cannot keep happening, especially to our communities. Listen, man, I understand that. Look, I've been discriminated against. I've been in situations where I've entangled with law enforcement. I've been pulled over. And when I get pulled over, it's one of those things that you automatically know what to do. It's like, as a black person, as a black man, it's one of those things where my hands are 10 and 2. Officer, license and registration is in my glove box. Would you like for me to grab it? I'm gonna be cautious. If I'm in a situation with law enforcement, it's one of those things where I know, just being an African American male, I know the difference. I know. So I behave and act accordingly. And it's one of those things where, listen, man, even just looking at the situation where this didn't have to happen, kids didn't have to be traumatized watching their father damn near almost getting murdered. We should understand that when things heat up, as African Americans, as things heat up with law enforcement, we have to understand that we are viewed differently. And we have to do what we can to ease the tension. And yes, sometimes it doesn't work out that well. Sometimes we just run into idiot officers that are either trigger happy or anxious or whatever is going on with them. And no matter what we do, it just doesn't seem like it's going to work. But here in this situation, come on, man. Come on, man. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? You got a warrant. You got a warrant. So you already know, in a situation where cops are called, it's already from 0 and they're at 60. They're already there. You got a warrant. And you're going to walk away from law enforcement with guns drawn. Let's think about that for a second. Let's use some common sense. And on top of that, you open the car to your door. And I'm not even going to say he was reaching for anything, because there's no mention as the point if there was a weapon or anything else involved. But it's one of those things where it's like, bruh, You're opening your car door and going in. What do you think they're gonna think you're trying to do? You got a warrant, bruh. And realistically, I'm going to say this because I don't see a lot of people talking about this. And for those of y'all who really value the life of children and the life of innocent people, a little bit of the blame goes to Jacob Blake. I'm sorry. But as a father, running into something like this with law enforcement, I would be crushed putting my children in harm's way. Knowing the knowledge I know about how African Americans are viewed in the eyes of law enforcement, I will do what I can to act accordingly and get my kids and myself safe. You walking away from the cops, opening the door, jumping in the car. What did you think they were gonna do? See, that's the thing, yo. Like, we have to understand that the time that we're in. We have to understand that it is not fair. And the way that we're viewed, it's not fair. So you have to act accordingly to preserve your life and the life of your children. The way this whole thing had played out could have been, I believe there was a kid that got hurt. There was a kid that got hurt. And on top of that, your children are emotionally scarred from watching you being shot multiple times. Think about how that's going to affect them. And let's even backtrack. You were breaking up the fight between two adults. So the children were already, from the video, they were already present, right? They were sitting in the back. What kind of adults fist fights in front of children? Why are we fist fighting in front of children? They don't need to be seen adults act in that manner. They look up to you. They look up to y'all to keep them safe. They don't need to be seeing all that. And on top of that, the cops get called. And we all know, especially in the black community, you don't call the cops for shit that you can handle yourself. Because we know this happens. This almost always happens. Everyone knows. If you got a situation, you got to handle it. You got to handle it. Because when the cops gets involved, and that's it, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. They're gonna assume that you've lost control of this. That's what they're gonna assume. They're gonna assume that you've lost control of the situation, so you have to get them involved. So now they control. They get involved. They run your numbers. They figure out that you got a warrant for an abuse that you had a while ago, and now tensions escalate. They don't know who you are, and you're running up in the car, and you know your kid's in the car. So I'm sorry, I can't let that slide. I can't let that slide at all. I can't let that slide because you don't put children's lives in danger like that. And I don't care how angry you get in the way you're being treated. I don't care what they did. I don't care. It does not deserve you. That does not excuse the fact that you put the kid's life at risk. So the blame goes on both parties here because this could have been handled a lot better. This is just more senseless violence, senseless destruction that we don't need in this day and age. In this time period we're in right now. Because I don't know if y'all realize this, but the world is falling apart all around us. And we don't need more bullshit like this to add to it. We all need to be focused on the real problems right now that are happening. This is very sad to see. And I'm hoping that something serious comes out of this, something beneficial that changes the way, the nature of how law enforcement operates in this country, and it changes how just everything. We have to gut the entire thing. We have to gut the entire thing. I'm not saying that we should disband or defund or anything like that, but just the whole structure needs to change. The whole way that we're doing things, we need to get these people involved with the neighborhoods more. We need to get these people knowing who the hell they're policing. We need to get these people to find other means of de-escalation. And that's another thing, because cops don't de-escalate, they escalate. We got to work on that. There's a lot of, man, we got problems. we got a lot of problems right now, and it's just tough. It really is. I hope for a safe and speedy recovery for Jacob Blake. I really hope so. He's right now in ICU in Milwaukee in a hospital, and yeah, I hope he makes a full recovery. And we don't need kids away from their father. We don't need more fatherless kids in this country right now. We don't need more fatherless kids in this world. They need their dad to survive, and let's make sure our thoughts and prayers go out to them, and hopefully real change, real change, not only to the way law enforcement operates, but in the way we conduct ourselves. And that's pretty much what I got. This is just, it's crazy.